Today we've gotten one of the biggest updates we've ever heard for cryptocurrency, and that is that the US government itself may begin buying Bitcoin and putting it on the national balance sheet. Not just holding the Bitcoin they've already got, but actively buying new Bitcoin. Yet the market's selling off from an inflation print that everybody believes will go away quickly, and I happen to agree that all dips are for buying at the current moment. But all of this news coming into the hallowed final fourth quarter of the year after the halving, when some are expecting explosive and parabolic upside in Bitcoin, ETH, and the altcoins, life-changing gains, fuck you money and gen wealth, and some even calling for the super cycle, it's important to wonder, hey, what is gonna happen here? So today I'm gonna give you my absolute craziest, most rational video. No, I'm not just gonna be beating the drum, which I like to do and I think is good to do here in crypto land. I'm gonna be giving you my rational way to view the next few months in crypto land and how I'm approaching it with my own portfolio to maximize gains. If you're excited, make sure to destroy that like button and let's dive in. First and foremost, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is saying Bitcoin that has finally been forfeited to the federal government will be the foundation of the strategic Bitcoin reserve that President Trump established in his March executive order. In addition, Treasury is committed to exploring budget-neutral pathways to acquire more Bitcoin to expand the reserve and to execute on the president's promise to make the United States the Bitcoin superpower of the world. I mean, how else do you want it spoon-fed to you that you are front-running the buying of Bitcoin by the United States government? There's no bigger bazooka cannon of money on earth. And you're being told that you can front-run this, but many people will still mid-curve this trade because they want somehow more confirmation. But by the time that truly comes out, that confirmation, I think it might be a bit late because a lot of people, as we've seen from this administration, know stuff before we do, and they're going to be buying before we do. And no, there's not going to be any reconciliation from that. Price will move and we'll all miss out. But the question is, when looking at all of this insane news, are we looking at this endless super cycle where the US government and Wall Street just continue to add to Bitcoin and crypto, where Tom Lee is going to make sure that ETH becomes the biggest macro trade, not just today and tomorrow, but over the next 10 to 15 years, the way Bitcoin has been for the last 15 years? Is this the beginning of an endless flow of money from Wall Street, the super cycle, where we just simply need to hold on for years and years? Or is this yet another normal cycle? Is there no super cycle according to Smiley Capital? BTC and ETH, will they go down 50 to 70% top to bottom? Will SHIT coins, I'm going to try not swearing in this one. Maybe it'll help us not get as flagged on YouTube. I think I've been getting flagged on YouTube. So make sure to smash that like button for me and subscribe, share the video around. It really helps the algo. But maybe they'll also go down 100% like last time. Anyway, this is actually the period where we should expect, even if that's true, to make the most money. So I'm going to be giving you my 2 cents on all that. But first, let's go through a couple of things today. Today, there was a hot PPI. Essentially, inflation came a little hot. That doesn't matter, according to Tom Lee. I also agree it doesn't matter. I think this is maybe just a one-time inflation coming from tariffs. But in the end, my favorite analyst, especially Fajao here, who's the macro expert, says a high PPI due to portfolio management fees, due to stock market ripping, is noise that everyone will forget about in a few days, aka buy the dip, buy the effing dip. In my opinion, right now, before things move onward and upward, this is going to be the best shot we got if we get true weakness on the board. I've been just steamrolling money into the market. Specifically, I've been rolling money into Ethereum since my goat, Tom Lee here, started buying it in the billions. Now, if you didn't know this, Tom Lee and BitMine, I'm sure you know this because you're all freaking geniuses out there, but Tom Lee is about to have $20 billion more to buy into ETH because he's doing the MicroStrategy thing with Bitminer, BMNR. As you guys know, I took a position in BMNR in the low $30 range. That trade has almost doubled or over doubled as of recording this video. I think it's sunk down a little bit, but it hit like $70. That's crazy. And that shows that Wall Street is 100% listening when Tom Lee speaks, which is why I was so much more bullish on Tom Lee's vehicle than Joseph Lubin's, because I'm betting on Tom Lee. He's the guy. He's the one I want to back. He's the one who knows how to rile up those bull market spirits, those animal spirits. Picking your fighter is utterly important. You always want to back the founder that you think is going to go to bat for your community. I believe that's why my projects have been successful, because the community knows I'm never going to give up. I'm like a dog with a bone. And I see that in Tom Lee too. I love that. Obviously, he's got the $20 billion treasury we're working up. We're working up. Give us a few more months, all right? Give us a few more months. So as Ethereum puts in hourly candles like this, where it bounces from 4,400 all the way up to 4,700 pretty much, and Pickles Cage says, is this bullish? Well, I wanted to take this time to go over what is a rational way to approach the next phase of the bull run, because there is a sense here that you should be selling everything at the top. And there's this camp of like, hey, I'm going to dump everything at the top. The biggest problem with that is it's very hard to time the top. Even Kobe, some of the best traders in the industry, have historically said they tend to miss the top by upwards of 50% before you really realize that the run has completed. And then there's other folks who believe that we will see, different types of behavior. For example, Ryan Watkins here, who's an amazing analyst over at previously Masari, and he's got his own VC now. He says, it's pretty incredible how many people recognize it's late cycle and plan to sell the top this time. Surely everyone will be right. This is sarcasm. Part of me feels like a lot of y'all don't like it here. And it's manifesting in fantasies about selling it all and riding out into the sunset. Knowing when to get out is important, but the vibe I get here is much of a deeper sense of dissatisfaction with the state of affairs and fatigue from too many years on the roller coaster. This to me is 100% true. People get drained in crypto. If I knew how much life force would have been sucked out of me from crypto, I don't know if I would have started this journey. That's the truth. But now that I'm here, I'm going to see this through because I know that it can make you incredibly wealthy. It's pretty much the only shot we have. And doing things like buying Bitcoin, since we've been buying Bitcoin, has been the single easiest way to transform your life. I also believe ETH and altcoins will give that opportunity. And we're going to start seeing the good altcoins join the likes of Bitcoin in the traditional finance markets, getting those flows from Wall Street. That's going to be the hurdle that you need to get over in order to see that life-changing, never-ending bull run type wealth. And I think it's happening. Otherwise, I simply wouldn't be doing this if I didn't believe that this was the single easiest way to change your life. But there's a lot of people who are just completely capitulating based on time. He says, what if we're neither in a bubble or crash as extreme as everyone thinks, or it takes longer than you like? Anyway, this is one of the biggest things that I want to point out is that there is a real possibility, I even think a likelihood, that we don't see this parabolic explosive Q4 action, but we just see a continual growth of the industry quarter over quarter, week over week, year over year. And that would be amazing if all of a sudden Wall Street starts really falling in love with specific assets and creating passive flows into them. That could create a whole new class of crypto assets where it's like, okay, yeah, before it was, are you on Binance? Are you on Coinbase? All the same market makers, all the same flows. Now it's, do you have a narrative that appeals to Wall Street? Because that's where the next big flow of capital comes from. And I think that that might be an incredible journey, not for all assets, but for the really good ones. It would give people a chance to buy and hold, not just for a few weeks, a few months, but for years and decades. And that to me, that believe in something, hold it until it grows and grows. That's what we all got into crypto for. We didn't want to get into this to play Fortnite nightmare mode, Russian roulette with our finances. That's not why we're doing this. We're doing this to make generational wealth and invest in networks early that can grow, take over the world, change the world. So again, as Miles is pointing out here, the Bitcoin cycle would indicate that we should see parabolic upside in Bitcoin. And that might happen. In fact, that's still the most likely outcome, given the way everything's shaped up, given the news. Okay, the government's buying treasury codes, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it sends this from 120 all the way up to, 250, 300K very quickly in a matter of a couple of months. If that happens, it's very likely that we'll see a rampaging altcoin season, and then we'll see a collapse. This would be indicative that we're following the normal parabolic 4-year cycle. And Smiley is also saying the same thing, which is like, hey, this is the last stage of the bull cycle. We have the most to gain starting here. But if you don't sell, you're absolutely screwed. And you also have Tech Dev here saying, hey, maybe the last cycle, we didn't even really expand on altcoin dominance. This is what I was saying is I'm a big believer that altcoin technology is still not accurately priced and that eventually we will see Bitcoin dominance make new lows. A lot of people find that to be the wrong view, especially in this Bitcoin dominance driven cycle. It is my belief, again, I don't trade my own beliefs completely because if things get up too expensive, I will sell a lot of stuff at the top, or I'll try to, and I'll make videos explaining what I'm doing. But there's a possibility that we see altcoins actually break through and create a new high in market dominance this cycle. And that shouldn't surprise you if Wall Street starts bidding aggressively Ethereum, if Wall Street starts bidding aggressively Solana, if Wall Street starts bidding aggressively DeFi. These are the things that are logical to me, and it makes sense that this would inevitably bring the dominance of Bitcoin across the rest of the asset class lower. That makes sense to me. Anyway, we will find out in the coming months if this is true. Again, I will get to my strategy very, very soon, but I just wanted to go through some of this. Again, another example of someone calling for a 12 trillion USD market cap, which would be a massive, massive jump from here. We are currently at like 3.9 trillion, right? We're at 3.91. So that would mean that the whole market would jump up almost 3x here, over 3x here. And that would mean altcoins would probably do hundreds of X's, the good ones. So that's just crazy, man. That's just crazy. If this happens, you're all going to be on boats. It's not even that you're not going to see me. It's that I'm not going to see any of you guys because you'll all be on your own yachts. That's just crazy. But if this happens, this is why we've been doing this. This is why we've suffered for years and years waiting for the euphoria, waiting for the big moment. And this would be huge. But of course, there would be a horrific collapse if this happens. Now, again, like I said, Ethereum coming into vogue, Ethereum getting its time in the light means that you are now seeing an entirely new class of investors say, wait a second, we heard it was Bitcoin and Bitcoin only. We heard only Bitcoin, and now we're seeing it's actually Ethereum too, which makes us wonder, what else? What else are you hiding from us? What else you got under the hood there? Because altcoins are now a topic that people need to understand. They're like, oh, Ethereum is the biggest altcoin. Let me look up that word. I have no idea what that means. But guess what? When altcoins go up, every bit of retail returns. And when retail returns, YouTube subscribers like this channel will explode. YouTuber projects will explode. The general retail fanaticism will explode. And that's where we get these manias, these retail manias. Now, I'm not sure if that'll happen, but you're seeing some evidence that maybe, just maybe, we're seeing the beginning of a new cycle emerge here. We're seeing the new growth of new faith and new excitement based on Ethereum pumping. I don't know if you guys remember this, but I screamed about this 2 months ago. I said once ETH gets rotated into because of these new laws, people are going to start believing in altcoins again. If you want your altcoin to pump, you better pray ETH pumps because it'll knock down Bitcoin dominance. It'll bring altcoins back into the belief phase, and we will see optimism reign once again. So to me, this is beautiful, a beautiful thing. And once again, I have to claim a little bit of clout here. The last 2 months, I've been absolutely on fire. I've grown my portfolio extremely, extremely well. And I'm just so excited for the foundation that's laid for the next few months and potentially the next few years. As we're starting to see, once again, Grail NFT sales, we're seeing crazy punk sales. We're seeing now the first big Bored Ape sale. We haven't seen a Bored Ape sale this big in a very long time. As ETH goes up, people will want to buy stuff in ETH, and NFTs took off once ETH exploded in value. I expect the same. Maybe it won't be the same as last time, but this is going to be the shocker for a lot of people. Monkey Picks, people will be buying and selling them again. Well, they clearly already are. And Penguin Picks, maybe Neo Tokyo Picks, maybe Imposters Picks. All those will once again be things that you can look at and potentially see as markets. I'm just sharing with you the reality is that this is what happens when the risk comes on. And I'll say before I get to the final place of how I want to play this, I think that when you look at what is native to crypto, that are true innovations that set crypto apart, and there are narratives and categories that I believe once the belief in crypto and the cynicism wears off, I believe capital will flow into the native innovations inside crypto that actually make sense, even if the price cooled off in the bear market. One of those is DeFi. I've been like a broken record about DeFi. The next is NFTs. NFTs are crypto native. There's no other way to do this online. I believe the NFT is still a very important step forward. I don't know which NFTs will go to the moon, but I know that some will. That's my genuine belief, is that NFTs will come back. I've always said that. And finally, I believe that when NFTs go vertical, I believe crypto gaming will once again be exciting because crypto gaming fundamentally uses the items as NFTs, and all of a sudden people will value these things. So I believe that that's the order of events. I believe that DeFi, I believe NFTs, and I believe crypto gaming are very important and essentially critical pieces of crypto innovation that now that we're seeing altcoins get cool again, they will cycle back into being visible and probably very profitable in this next run. So don't be surprised if these things happened. I told you here first. Quite frankly, we haven't even seen the ISM cross the 50 mark. This is what typically signals risk on. And I think the actual Federal Reserve cutting interest rates will be the key driver in sending this over the edge, actually bringing some easing, some stimulus to the market. And so we will see a huge pivot here once ISM crosses 50 and Ethereum breaks to new highs. And of course, with the explosion of stablecoins, we just know more and more and more money is coming. All right, so if you want to know my step-by-step of how I'm going to play this market, how I'm going to interpret the signs, how I'm going to read the tea leaves, and what I think is going to happen immediately, and then shortly thereafter, the step-by-step, the coins I'm going to buy to absolutely destroy this market, then you need to please destroy the like button. I appreciate it. We need to get these videos out here. We're not getting enough likes. We're just not getting enough likes. I'm wondering if people like me at all. Once again, if you guys want to trade on Blowfin, shout out to the partner of this channel. You can get up to $100,000 deposit and trade rewards. I'm also going to be doing something very cute where I give out 100,000 super from my own personal stash to reward the traders of this community. And I'm actually going to be airdropping a ton of that to the best trader in the community, but really anyone who signs up over the next 30 days will be eligible. So make sure that you get in there and sign up because you have a chance to win yourself some super just by signing up and trading. I want to be very clear that trading is exceptionally risky. So if you don't know what you're doing, just know you can end up losing quite a bit there. Obviously, if you're good at trading, you can make crazy money, but just know you're adding risk, you're adding leverage to this entire game. So make sure that it fits your risk appetite. Anyway, shout out to Blowfin. You can sign up with no KYC with the link in the description below. I trade on them all the time. I love Blowfin, and big shout out to them for partnering with the channel. All right, so now we get to the ultimate question here that you've been looking for, that I've been looking for. We've been wandering the desert for 40 years asking ourselves, what exactly does a realistic bull market look like? We've been wondering why people are scooting away from us in the streets. Do we smell bad? Is it the mustache? What could it possibly be? And now we finally have our answers. So to me, what we've seen here over the last few days is this. This is the Ethereum chart. And as you can see, one of the best charts in the business went from 20, pretty much actually, let me go back here. Let's go to the 1 day. And you can see that we went from what, $1,300 almost straight up to 4,900, 4,800, pretty much the prior all-time high here of 4,800. Fell ever so slightly short. But what you can see is happening now is that we are getting a little bit of a dip from this PPI print that happened today. And so as we see Ethereum, this was its 4K resistance that it failed to break through for months and months. Pretty much the last 4 years it's failed to break through, and it hasn't really retested it yet. So this would be an ideal opportunity for it to come down and retest this $4,100 support. And I wouldn't be surprised to see it, go under like we see it going under here, like one of these types of actions before resolving higher. I believe that with all of this buy pressure coming into Ethereum, it's just a question of when, not if, ETH goes to insanely new highs. In fact, ETH might be the easiest trade in this whole market. Even though it's already gone up a ton, I believe genuinely it's still going to go up at least 2x from here. I believe in the longer term, a couple of years from now, it could be up 10x from here. That's my genuine belief, is that in the 2030 range, we could be looking at 40, 50K ETH. And that sounds crazy, but so did 100K Bitcoin to a lot of people. To me, ETH is just as interesting of an asset as Bitcoin. That's just my personal belief. But again, I'll get rained down on that by some Bitcoiners. It definitely should not replace your Bitcoin outcomes. But the question is, what's about to happen next? Now, what you see here from Bitcoin is it failed to get above this July 25 high. Well, it started to show like it did. And then it did what we call a deviation, where it just kind of, fakes out. And now the question is, do we go all the way back down here to 112? I don't know. That would be the bottom of this range. But if we do get down here, if we do get anywhere down here lower, I'm buying with all the dry powder I have, And to me, I believe that we're going to be coming into one of the best opportunities in the world. Now, a lot of people have predicted September is a bad month for Bitcoin and crypto the year after the halving. So it very well might be that September is a red month, or there is some kind of cool off in this period, right? As we get into, this period, there could definitely be, some cool off. Now, we could go all the way up to 130 and then cool all the way down here. We could just cool off from here and just go down here and start playing around. I don't know what the deal is, but I'm very, very excited for what's coming. All of the tea leaves are showing us that over the next few months and probably years, we're going to see massive, massive amounts of capital flow into Bitcoin and crypto and ETH and all of our favorite assets. So I'm just trying to buy the dip with everything I can imagine. That said, what is a realistic outcome? Well, I think if you see Bitcoin start to do something like this, let's go to a logarithmic chart so you can just see it a little easier, and I'll go to the daily view. If we see Bitcoin start to go ahead and form a parabola, sort of like this, right? Where we see it go kind of straight up like this. If we see Bitcoin start to go really straight up like this and make it up to, 250, maybe 300K, anywhere in this range above 200K, I think that that's pretty parabolic. And I think that you're probably going to see, some consolidation, maybe another fake out to the upside, and then probably a massive, massive bear market, right? Where you see it come all the way back down. Yeah, not all the way down here, but maybe to, 50 to 80K in the future. It's sometime in 2026. So if this happens in Q4 where Bitcoin zooms between, 200K and 300K, something crazy astronomical, I would say, yeah, we're in a parabolic market. This is not your sort of cool, calm, and collected passive flows from Wall Street. This is a retail mania where people are getting exuberant, they're getting euphoric, and we will see the traditional collapse we've seen. My timeline to say, okay, when is this potentially something different is, let's just imagine that Bitcoin actually doesn't do all that. But if we see Bitcoin just continue to do this jump, consolidate, jump, consolidate, and this goes on very slowly and methodically. Obviously, it wouldn't come all the way down here, but if we just see kind of like this stuff continue, then this feels kind of sustainable to a degree, right? If we're just seeing it jump, 10% here, 20% there over the next few months, that is not crazy. And that would lead me to believe that we are seeing a slow but steady long-term adoption of Bitcoin as an asset class. Now, the one thing I'll say is we just don't know if a recession hits. If a recession hits, throw this all out the window and we'll see the game change. We'll have to address it at the time. But if we see a parabola, right? If we see things that just go like this, then I'd be saying you want to be selling everything into this euphoria. But if we see it go more slow and steady, that's where I think you need to understand we might be looking at a 2027 top or something like that. I mean, maybe late mid 2026, the game will have changed. And that's not crazy to me considering how much later everything has happened in this cycle, like the rotation of Bitcoin dominance, which last cycle had already broken down significantly in January. We saw the January breakdown, right, of Bitcoin dominance. We saw it go from December 20th was its peak. And then we saw it go all the way down significantly from 73% all the way down to, 59%. That was already by January. We had seen that. Then we saw it kind of stabilize and then plummet all the way down to, 39%. And that happened by May. So here we are, we're in late August and we're still clinging pretty close to the highs. In fact, we've seen kind of something like this before where it's gone kind of down, deviated out of this channel and then pop back up. So it's possible that it does that, right? Like if the US government announces they're buying Bitcoin and Bitcoin just goes like that without anything else, this is still possible, right? So is it possible that this doesn't quite resolve the way we've seen in prior cycles? Absolutely. Absolutely. It's possible that we see a much longer cycle that could end up carrying us into, we see this kind of action right here. And it's not until middle of 2026 that we really see this collapse in Bitcoin dominance. Maybe the collapse is very subtle, maybe it's just really agonizing and slow, and maybe we'll see reversals of the trend. And who knows, man, this is a whole new ballpark. But if we see Bitcoin go parabolic, then ETH go parabolic, then the altcoins go parabolic, and Bitcoin dominance goes like this, then we'll probably be pretty sure that we're going to be in the ultimate late end of the cycle. And you would be very, very risk adjusted and be making a good bet to say, hey, you know what? I'm going to take some chips off the table here. I'm just going to do it. And that's because you'd be taking a risk adjusted return. Maybe, just maybe we keep going up, but you'd want to take some chips off because that's essentially the 4-year cycle playing out to a T. Again, timing the tops is difficult, but taking some chips off the table in Q4 is definitely the smart, the logical, and the risk adjusted way to play this. Now, what's really interesting is because of the black hole project, I am permanently locked and getting passive flows from this on-chain business, where regardless of an up market or a down market, it's churning out revenue and fees. And that's something that I am so proud of. Look at this. This is the DEX volume since launch of the black hole project, which just completed its 4th week, its 4th epoch, and it was the most profitable epoch yet. And you can see that this trend of DEX volume has just gone upwards and to the right. And the amount of revenue coming out has made new highs. On this day of 312 million DEX volume, you can see that it also, the revenue to holders was also a record of, where was it? $272,000 paid through to holders of the black token, or technically holders of the burnt black token. So one of the things that I think is quite interesting about participating in DeFi is you can get these types of opportunities that expose you to ongoing revenue. So you're not forced to make this decision of, hey, do I sell it all here? Do I wait for higher? You're not in this one size fits all approach. You're effectively taking a call option on the industry itself and saying, do I believe that Avalanche will be around and be a relevant chain? And do I believe that Black Hole will be the dominant DEX on Avalanche? If you believe those things to be true, then you also would believe that this revenue will continue and that you'll get an opportunity to make a ton more in the good times, because as the prices go up, revenues increase, and you'll still have dry powder in the down times, which is something a lot of people I think are wildly underestimating how important it's going to be to get recurring amounts of dry powder through the hard times, which inevitably there will be more. So to me, when you look at the potential here of one of my favorite altcoin plays, which is Avax, this is still a beach ball under the water. In my opinion, you can see it's kind of under this bullish pivot. So once it breaks out, I'm expecting for Avax to get up to this $40 range pretty easy. And then once it clears this sort of $50 range, this pivot line right here, which goes all the way back to 2021, $52, I think you got a clear path up to almost triple digits. And if that happens, you're going to see on-chain activity, volumes and revenues for things like Black Hole explode, right? That's the if. And so as we we look at these revenue statistics, which unbelievable for me, I cannot say how grateful I am that this has been the reception of the product. The token price has actually come down an absolute ton with all of the volatility and excitement and hype going through its normal launch cycle. Can't really control when projects are this hotly anticipated. But here you can see that revenues have gone up as the token price has dropped, which means that your chunk and buying a chunk of these revenues has gotten more valuable with increased revenues and cheaper with a lower token price. And this is why this system is so different than what you see with other altcoins, is that this is tremendous and economically rational value, where you can see that depending on some of these variables, where if you take some of these recent revenue days and you calculate how many votes you'd get, you're going to be able to understand the time limit based on current revenues that it would take for you to get paid back for your initial investment. And then once you hit your payback, everything after that is just free revenue forever. So I'm going to be making a video because I know some of this is gibberish to you guys out there. So I'm going to be making a video where I set up a new wallet, buy some black, burn it, vote on the upcoming epochs, and show how the system works so that you understand, one, what the hell is this thing? How does it work? Two, why and how the token fits into this ecosystem, and why this is insanely good that revenues have gone like that as the token price has cooled off, and why it's such an amazing opportunity. This is, I think, the coolest project in the entire crypto space, and I can't wait to show you guys because I believe you're looking at a massive opportunity. That's my personal belief. Again, obviously, I'm a gigabull, but at the same time, I'm extremely proud. And you guys know I ain't going nowhere. When I put my name on stuff, I'm like a dog with a bone for life. I am absolutely obsessed. So just to be clear, what I think will happen realistically is I think once ETH starts to get up to that 6 to 7K range, it'll probably cool off and take some time. That's the cue for major altcoins to start making their move. And I'm talking about Solana. I'm talking about XRP. I'm talking about Avalanche. I'm talking about SWI. I'm talking about those big altcoin, big caps, the majors. Those, once they start moving 2, 3x up, then it's time for that liquidity to flow into the lower tier altcoins. And that's when we get a full-blown alt season. That's the typical flow that I'd be expecting. But I'll tell you what, I actually think it's going to happen in a couple phases. I wouldn't be surprised to see Bitcoin actually cool off a little bit here. I wouldn't be surprised to see Bitcoin potentially range or just not really do anything crazy through September. Kind of, go like this, maybe like that. And then when we get to October or middle Q4, I would like to see it just really make a move. That would be how I want to see Bitcoin behave. And if that happens, it feels very traditional for your cycle. If what happens actually is that this ETH move has nothing to do with altcoins, but it's just ETH itself getting its own real narrative on Wall Street, and we see ETH just kind of go through this process of making its way up, kind of the way Bitcoin has, there might be a reality that ETH and Bitcoin drive the market for quite a while before we see this massive rotation into altcoins. I think of it as potentially less likely, but this is something that we have to be aware of, is that ETH may just drive for a while. And to me, that is the best possible outcome, because while Bitcoin sets the ceiling for all crypto, ETH sets the ceiling for all altcoins. And if ETH makes it up closer and closer to Bitcoin, then all altcoins will reprice under it, and it will be very, very beautiful. So to be clear, I'm still essentially betting that we're going to have this massive pandemonium in Q4 of this year. I'm buying the hell out of any dips, and maybe I'm excited. Maybe I'll buy a spaceship this year. But I also think the reality of Wall Street truly understanding crypto, altcoins, Ethereum, DeFi, eventually NFTs, even meme coins, crypto gaming, these things are coming. They're ahead of us. And once they start happening, that's when the magic truly happens. And this long-term adoption, not just a quick Q4 get rich and sail off, because this really stuck with me. It feels like a lot of y'all don't like it here. And I get it. Crypto is draining, but we're winning so big. We front ran the banks, the institutions. It wasn't easy. It was ugly. They tried to fight us. They tried to lock us up under Joe Biden. They tried everything. And now we've literally won. We've emerged victorious. And this is the good part. This is the part where we get to see our beloved altcoins, yes, our altcoins, get adopted by the banks, the biggest money bags on earth, buying our bags at 5x, 10x. That's what's literally happening. So as much as it is exciting to say, okay, we're going to make all our money in Q4 and sail off into the sunset, understand that this is a trend that I see playing out over several years, if not a decade or two, where crypto will continue to grow. And so as much as I think it's fun to like make these rampant bull videos, realistically, I think we're coming into a part of the cycle that could have a blow off top and it could also not. And quite frankly, I'd be totally cool if it didn't, because that would mean that we get many years of growth. That would mean that the best protocols keep filtering their way up to the top. And I personally believe we've built the best in class DEX. I believe Blackhole is that. Now, I'm excited for what comes ahead. Regardless, I hope you all are doing well, but this is my realistic outcome, is that we will see a parabolic rise or we'll see a slow grind up over years and years. And either one, I'm cool with. Because if we get a parabolic blow off top, we can all sell the top, we can all buy spaceships, we can all start wearing cringe designer clothes. But if we get this slow grind up, we can kind of go on easy mode and stop being so worried all the time. Make sure you buy the category leaders, the good stuff that's going to make it over that hurdle right onto Wall Street. Sit back and watch your portfolio skyrocket for years and years to come. Quite a beautiful time we're at. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to smash that like button. Make sure to follow me on Twitter as well at EllioTrades. And of course, check out this video popping up right now. I'm sure you'll love it.